So I'm a big advocate of shooting with both eyes open. And the problem with being cross-eye dominant is, when I present the pistol, if I'm right-handed and left-eye dominant, is the pistol doesn't necessarily line up with my left eye because I'm presenting the pistol with my right hand. So we have to do something to compensate. So there's 3 methods I'd like to bring up. And the first that I don't recommend is you simply cant the pistol to the side so that it lines up with your left eye. But this is not very good when it comes down to recoil management because now the pistol isn't level. The second method, which I haven't trained a lot on, but I have heard has a lot of advantages, is you keep your head straight and you simply move the pistol over so that your left eye is seeing the sights. Then this means that your arms aren't going to be 100% even with your body, but once with training and you getting accustomed to this, I do believe this method is very effective, and the people that I've talked to who've been doing this say that it works really well. The method that I use, which has worked very well for me, is as I present the pistol, my head is straight with my body. As I present the pistol to the target, I simply move my head over so that my left eye is centered with my body, and what you can use for reference is your belly button. So my right eye is sort of going off to the side. I'm kind of pushing that processing, the visual processing from my right eye off to the side, and I'm not really paying attention to what my right eye is doing. So my left eye is centered with my body, my arms can be centered with my torso, and then I see my sights. And as soon as I come out of the gun, my head goes back to being straight. And as soon as I go back into my sights, my left eye is presented, and I have my sight picture. So that's the method that I've chosen to use, and it works very well. I've heard people say that using a pistol optic, such as a delta point or an RMR, solves your problems if you're cross-eye dominant. But I'm going to say that's utter rubbish, and here's why. So I have a Trigicon RMR right here, and the problem is my eyes are a little under 3 inches apart, and this is a very small viewing window and optic, and I don't hold this pistol very far from my body. So it's physically impossible for both of my eyes to see this dot at the same time. The only way for that to work is if someone were to make a mount where it would put one RMR here on the left, one on the right, it'd be on a track so you can move them apart so that both your eyes will see both optics at the same time. But that would be super hard to zero, and if you use that, you'd probably get instantly lobotomized. So it's probably not a good idea. So basically, when I'm shooting with a pistol optic, I do the exact same thing I do when I'm shooting with irons. I simply turn my head to the left, and I have my sight picture with my optic. So it does not fix being cross-eye dominant. Red dots give a lot of other advantages. So don't listen to people that say, get a red dot because you're cross-eye dominant, because it doesn't do anything for you. So now for the doozy of all of this, and that is, how do you shoot rifles if you're cross-eye dominant? Well, I see a lot of people who say if you're cross-eye dominant, you need to shoot your rifle on your left shoulder so that your dominant eye is looking through the sighting system. That definitely works, but let's face it, the majority of us shoot better if we keep the rifle in our dominant hand. So for me, I keep the weapon in my right hand, and so I can work fire control with my right hand. Obviously, we want to be as ambidextrous as possible and be able to shoot effectively with our left hand, but the majority of us are always going to be more effective with our dominant hand. So basically what happens is you're going to take a hit one way or another if you're a cross-eye dominant person. Either you're going to lose a little bit of visual acuity shooting through your sighting system with your right eye, but you're using the weapon in your dominant hand, or you use the rifle in your non-dominant hand and then you use your dominant eye. So you kind of have to pick your poison in this regard, and I'm going to talk about how to use sighting systems with your non-dominant eye. Red dots on rifles are easy because we already have both eyes open, because that's typically how we shoot with red dots. So when I bring this weapon up, my right eye is seeing the optic and my left eye is seeing the target and what's around that. So that's why I like shooting with red dots a lot, because since I'm cross-eye dominant, it doesn't slow me down one bit. I can leave both eyes open very effectively, and I don't have to change anything to shoot with the red dot. And you probably don't either if you're cross-eye dominant. If you want to switch to the left shoulder, that's fine, you can do that, but it won't make much of a difference if you're using a parallax-free red dot. Iron sights are tricky, at least for me, because I can't accurately discern my aperture and my front sight posts when I'm shooting with my right hand because I'm left eye dominant. So my left eye is pulling most of the information, and if I try to leave both eyes open, I can't discern my sights well enough. So basically what I do is, as soon as my gun comes up to target, I just shut my left eye, and I use my right eye to line everything up. All my data transfers to my right eye. I can focus better, get that really good sight picture, and then shoot accurately. So I'm a little bit slower shooting with iron sights because I am forced to shut one eye. Some people can shoot irons very well with both eyes open, but those people are usually right eye dominant, so it's a little bit easier to do. So here I have an Eotech Vudu 1:6, and when I shoot a variable optic, I typically have to shut my left eye if I have the optic powered up to 6 or anything above 1 power. On 1 power, I can get away with both eyes open, but if I want to really refine my sight picture and really get a good accurate shot, I usually close my left eye, so I'm looking through the optic with my right eye, and that allows me to be a little more precise, really hone in on that reticle and get my shots off. If I have a illuminated reticle, like on the Vortex Razor or maybe the Acog, it's a little easier to keep both eyes open if need be, because the brightened reticle sort of superimposes and burns into your brain, but this Vudu doesn't brighten up too much, so I typically have to shut my left eye. If I have the Elcan here, the Elcan gets pretty bright, which is nice, so I can keep both eyes open pretty good through this if I'm on 1 power. As soon as I switch to 4 power, then I usually have to shut my left eye. I have a doctor sight on here that allows me to bring my head up with the optic, and then I'm able to open up my left eye if I was already shut, and then I can use both eyes open for extra situational awareness and all that good stuff, being a cross-eye dominant shooter. I've got an Acog here. This is a fixed 4 power. I typically have to shut my left eye to shoot through this effectively. The bend and aiming concept does not really work for me because the bend and aiming concept generally requires that your dominant eye is looking through the Acog if you're shooting with both eyes open. And since my dominant eye is my left eye and I like to shoot right-handed, that doesn't quite work for me. So if I'm using a magnifier in conjunction with a red dot, like on this CQBR, I usually shut my left eye if I switch to the magnifier, because then I'm pulling magnification. My brain is pulling more processing from my left eye, and I really need to transfer all that to my right eye to really ensure I'm getting a good sight picture. So if my magnifier is out of the way, I have both eyes open just to shoot with the Eotech. As soon as I move the magnifier over, I then shut my left eye and start going to work with this with just my right eye.
This thing's clear and safe, so you gotta forgive me. But if I throw this out and I am left eye dominant, in order for me to roll this thing over into my eye line, it's a task. With night vision on, it's impossible. So we have to be able to bring this up and then roll it over into our eye line so we can present to our opposite if we're a cross-eye dominant shooter. So by the industry making these elevated risers, it's solving for multiple issues.
Nothing to report here. Yeah, all quiet here too. Get down!
So he's going to show you what trying to shoot passively, defeating nods and the gas mask, and what that looks like, and how functional or unfunctional that is, and how consistent. I mean, how consistent do you think it would be?
Dude, to try to get an active engagement with this thing on in here, it's terrible. Like, you can't see. I haven't seen a red dot yet. Like, you can't see it because the articulation of my nods where the tube is, trying to get this in front of it into alignment and look through it, isn't a possibility.
I mean, you can't build enough reps for that to be functional.
No, like, and it's kind of the whole thing we're talking about. You can't bet your life on that system because it's not repeatable.
Now you overlay gas mask, real world, somebody's actually shooting at you, and you won't get your fat thumb out of the way.
Exactly.
So your laser obscuration, you got your nods fogging, can't breathe right. So what we're solving for is how unrealistic it is to be able to passively shoot through nods on kind of the current setup that we grew up on.
And it's because I can snap it out and then I can roll it in my opposite eye line.
There's no head movement, easy to passively shoot, full rail grip.
Because it's just tall enough to make it. So with a passive shooting, we don't have to dip ahead. We don't have to sit there and try to work it over. And anybody who's ever put on a gas mask and tried to shoot, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The military wants you to go out and shoot a set course of fire with a gas mask on, and you can't do it because you can't see. You can't drop your eye over enough to be able to pick up a red dot. So this alleviates that.